Thanks, Karen. So thanks everybody for joining. Today's session is what you see. It's about the Homer Simpson car, which is an episode of The Simpsons from 30 years ago. So let's get started. Um, Real quick, the sponsors for today for Product Camp Austin, I just want to say thank you to them. Pragmatic Institute, which I'm a customer of, so be sure to check them out. Talk to them today if you can. University of Texas, McCombs, Master of Science in Technology Commercialization, which is probably new since I've been to Austin. So that sounds really cool. Check that out as well. And then 280 Group as well, which I'm very familiar with. At the very bottom, I see Norris Meetings and Events Centers. So be sure to thank all of those folks. I'll mention them again at the end. With that said, what's our session today? Well, our session today is going to be on the episode of The Simpsons. Like Homer, we can work amazingly hard and create something that the market rejects. In this session, we will discuss a particular episode of The Simpsons from season 2, at the middle of season 2, episode 15, called "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And specifically, we'll focus in on the problems with Homer's approach, which are interacting with engineers, the design process, doing a product launch, and then we will talk about some solutions. So in case you haven't watched the episode in the last 30 years, and you didn't just watch it right before this session, because I know nobody did. We're going to give Homer a performance review for his role as a product manager. And if you haven't watched the episode since becoming a product manager or a program manager or a project manager, it takes on an entirely new dimension when you actually do. There will be quite a bit of discussion in The Simpsons on this session. And it's probably more discussion of The Simpsons than you would see in most sessions today. But we'll see what Roger does at 12:30. Maybe he'll beat me. So next up, a little bit about me. What does Matt Anderson UT stand for? I did not go to the University of Texas. I live in Utah. So I'm actually in Salt Lake City, where there are no product camps. And this is my 8th product camp, Austin, that I've attended. And this is the 7th one that I'm presenting at. So it's actually been a few years. So I'm not super familiar with everybody that's at PC Austin anymore, but I do know Roger, and I do know a few others. I know Andre Piazza, I know Elizabeth, so happy to be here today. What I do today is I'm a manager of product management at Bottom Line Technologies, and we are hiring. We're hiring for an associate product manager role, and I put that into the Slack channel for jobs. What I focus on today is banking solutions for digital account opening. And I'm in my 11th year as a product manager. I've done a lot of product launches. So, okay, let's talk about Homer Simpson. With this particular episode of The Simpsons, and like I said, we're going to talk a lot about The Simpsons in this session. So at the very beginning of the episode, Homer, his father has a heart condition, so he goes to the hospital. So Homer gets a call that says, come visit me in the hospital. Notice this is a really old episode. If you look at Homer's pupils, they are not dead on in his eye. So this is still pretty early in the Simpsons history. So Homer needs to go and visit his father in the hospital. And his father says, look, I need to tell you something. Before your mother had you, I had a child out of wedlock with a woman at a carnival, and we put the child up for adoption. So pretty big piece of news for Homer. And he gave him the orphanage address. So now Homer is calling around, finding out like, where can I find this person? Who is he? That kind of thing. So he actually is making these phone calls, and he gets his brother on the phone. So he's on the phone with his brother, and he says, you know what? Why don't you come over here, and you can sleep on our couch, and I'd love to meet you. And his brother, who you don't see yet, says, actually, how about you come out here? So you can't see his brother's face yet, but it zooms out, and there's this huge Frank Lloyd Wright mansion. And it turns out when Homer arrives in Detroit, where his brother lives, that Herb Powell, who's his brother, actually owns a car company. So let's focus in on the bottom middle panel there. You see there that Herb is in front of a chart and sales are going down. So they were pretty stagnant, but they're actually going down over the years. This company's not doing particularly well. That's on Herb's mind. When Herb meets Homer, they look a lot alike. I would say they look 80% alike. And by the way, Herb is Danny DeVito's voice. It was the first big guest star that would actually use his name. So it's really cool. So then they're sitting there, or they're standing there in the factory, and his brother says, "You know what? I'd like to give you a car. And what kind of car would you like?" And so Homer is talking to a few of the executives, and he describes the car that he would like. He would like a big car with lots of power. And the executives say, "We don't have one. We haven't built a car for somebody like you." And that's when Homer says, "Homer, I want you to build that car. You're going to build the next model. We're going to call it the Homer." And so Homer starts working with engineers, and he is effectively the product manager. He says, "I want it to be this way because that's what I like. It's going to look like this instead of your dumb idea." So let's look at these panels on the top. They have this beautiful design of a red car, and he is drawing a line through it. He does not like that. He wants the thing in the lower left panel that looks more like that, more of a space car kind of thing. So that is his direction of the product. So they build that, and we'll go through that in a second, all the stuff that they do, and they unveil it. And so there's Herb up in front of everybody. And behind that curtain is that car that he hasn't seen. So they actually show a commercial, a really magnificent commercial of the Homer that unveils it as the new car, and the curtain lifts. So now what's under that curtain? Well, this is what's under the curtain. This is what the car looks like. It is magnificent in its own way, but also it looks like it does. It looks pretty bad. And somebody actually built this car. You can go Google it. It's amazing when you see it. But the reaction from the crowd was bad. They did not like it. Herb, on first sight of this, asks how much it costs. It cost $82,000 back in the early 90s. That's a lot of money back then, and is now as well. So Herb is ruined, loses everything, and the episode actually ends as a real bummer. It's not a great way to end an episode. But that is the car that Homer unveiled. So how did we get here? And is Homer really a product manager here? I would say that he is. He's working directly with engineers, and he's telling them his vision, going through designs, that kind of thing. And we'll show you a little bit more about that. These are some of the problems that I identified as the things that were wrong with Homer as a product manager. The first thing is, interacting with the engineers. I always would say that one of the most important roles for a product manager is to have a good relationship with engineering and make them feel satisfied in their role. Get them to stay with the company at the very least. That's a good move if you're a product manager. Homer is not so great at dealing with eggheads, as he calls them. So definitely, like, he has problems in this area. Homer is also not so great at designing cars. That should not surprise you. If you actually seen the car that Homer drives, it does not look like that nice of a car. And then the last thing is that Homer doesn't know how to launch a product, which I empathize with, because that's the hardest one of all of these. And probably the fewest of us know how to do that. I'm going to show a clip. I thought about not showing a clip, but it's going to be better if I do. So here is a clip of Homer dealing with the engineers.
Here's what you do. From now on, before you say anything, say to yourself, if I was ever sure of anything, I'm sure of this. Do you understand?
Sort of.
Homer,
What?
answer me again with self-confidence.
Sort of.
Now go get him.
Yeah! All right,
you idiot! I want a place in this car to put my drink.
Sir, the car has a beverage holder.
Hello, Einstein. I said a place to put my drink. You know those super slakers they sell in the Quickie Mart? The cup is this big.
Extremely large beverage holder.
I'm not done yet. You know that little ball you put on the aerial so you can find your car in the parking lot? That should be on every car.
Little ball.
And some things are so snazzy they never go out of style, like tail fins and bubble domes
I
and
gotta call the
shag
boss.
carpeting. Yellow.
Okay, I'm going to stop the clip there. Just a reminder, great time for you to put observations that you're seeing about Homer's product management style in the Slack. I'd love to see you guys communicate with each other on that, make some comments. If there's some questions, we'll have some time at the end. But I'd love to hear some discussion between you all on what you're observing from Homer as a product manager. Okay, so interacting with engineers. And again, any other notes that you all notice, put them in Slack. But Homer has an abrasive product manager temperament. He thinks his job is just to identify features. He does not talk to customers. He is not asking the engineers to solve problems and do user stories. He's instead just verbally, giving the requirements to build a thing in his vision. He's not understanding what's already in the products and why they are the way that they are. So definitely like not really understanding the other cars that they have there as well. And then the last thing is you never hear once in the episode of competitor trends. Clearly like Homer is going in the opposite direction of the market with a lot of the features that he wants. Let's talk about design. And there's lots of clips on design. I'm not going to show them today for time. But one thing is Homer is hung up on his own authorship. And so he's overcompensating for his own experience using the product. He's assuming the design he likes is the design the market will like. So going back about 10 years in my career, this happened to me when they took a salesperson and had that person become the VP of product. It was the same deal. It was, he takes an idea, tells the designers to draw it, sees it, and gives it a thumbs up. Like, that's the thing that I described to you. Good job. No options, no customers involved. There's nothing. It's not really a process at all. It's just dictation. So he definitely has a problem with that. The other thing is Homer isn't looking at multiple options. He's building big, expensive features with no analysis of the other options. He's not running anything past his users. So one quick note, there's a lot of features that weren't listed in that clip, like bubble domes. And also like, look at this diagram. There's actually a bubble dome in the back that is just for the kids, that is a separate bubble dome, so he doesn't have to listen to them. So like, there's a lot of features in this car that, let me put it this way. The Simpsons has been around for 30 years and they've predicted who our presidents have been. And I have still never seen some of the features that are in this car in actual cars. So this is like just the purest nectar of technical debt, this car, how it turned out. Let's talk about the product launch. Don't have time to show the commercial that they did for this car. Just assume it's pretty good and assume that the commercials that I'm going to show you after this, it's somewhat like that. One thing that it did in the commercial and in the unveiling is that it said out loud that it's built for Homer. That's a bad sign. It's you want it to be built for the users, for the buyers, etc. Secondarily, shoddy craftsmanship. Here's what I mean on that. They actually have the car rotating on the screen like a lazy Susan. And you can actually hear it creaking as it's going around. So you know that it's not built very well. You could probably tell by looking at it, it's not very aerodynamic, but in addition, you could definitely tell not the greatest car in the world. The third thing, having a price that the market will reject. It was $82,000. This is back in like 91. 82,000, I don't even know what that translates to today. That's a bit high. The market was going to reject it back then. And so, and then the last thing, not practicing the launch. So Herb, the CEO of this company, hadn't seen the car before the unveiling. That's bad sign of Herb as a CEO. But in addition to that, like Homer needed to practice this a little bit better and not unveil it blindly to everybody. And you could see what the problem is there. That's why it was rejected. That's why Herb went out of business, etc. So I just want to point out, though, the commercial was good. The car is kind of legendary. Homer will work amazingly hard at something as long as it's somehow in the wrong direction. So if I'm missing anything that you guys have seen so far, throw it in Slack. So real world example of a launch not quite panning out. And you know, I think that what I'm going to show you is something that has potential. It's been done at least 3 times. I'm going to show you one of them that is a good example of something not quite panning out for a very specific reason. Okay, so we're going to look at a launch video here, and it's going to start out kind of quiet, I think, and then the volume will ramp up.
Hello? You ready?
Okay, so I don't know about everybody else, and I'd be interested what everybody else thinks about that. But the Surface Duo that came out, and it's the double screen, looks pretty cool, and it's appealing to me as a consumer. So I'm looking at it and going, you know, if I can buy into this as being something that's cool, then I'm all for it. I don't have all of the problems that Homer had with his product. That said, they did, you know, that was a pretty good video. There's actually an even better example of the Razor that came out that was a flip phone, and it was double-sided, and that came out in the past year. You guys know that there's a Samsung phone that also is a flip open phone. So this has been done. There was a problem though, and it's the reason why it hasn't sold, probably because it's not the ad. The ad's pretty good. The reason why it hasn't sold is that the price that it came out at was $1,500. That's a bit high for that. Maybe, you know, maybe it's not. But when you started to look at what the specs were versus what the price was, I think that there was some sticker shock. Now you can see what's happened in the past year, that it's been discounted about 30%. Pretty much everywhere, and I've seen some places that it's more like 50%. So you can see that there was a problem with one of the things that Homer had a problem with, which was the price, which actually was the thing that killed his product, was the price that was set. Let's look at another one that has some problems with just, I don't know, maybe product market fit. And so we're going to watch another launch video. This is the last video, I promise. Starts out quiet, I think.
Remote work and video conferencing is the new normal for so many of us, and a portal device can make it so much better, helping businesses and organizations come together over video calling to connect and collaborate even when we're apart. Portal gives you lots of options to connect with your colleagues. Let's see how using Workplace on Portal helps maximize your collaborative possibilities. Hey Portal, show me Workplace. Workplace is a communication platform that connects everyone in your office. Workplace Rooms gives you video calling with up to 50 people. It's as easy as sharing a link. Hello, good to see you. The HD display adapts to the lighting and colors of your room, and Portal's smart camera means you can get up and move around freely at any time. The smart camera pans and zooms to keep you at the center of the call as you move, ensuring that you're always seen and heard. Features like screen sharing help keep collaborative energy high. Oh, I love it. So get rid of what isn't working with working from home and bring the office to you with Portal. See you at happy hour.
Okay. Whoop. Okay. So, I showed you two different like devices as opposed to software programs, but that was the Portal by Facebook, which is an IoT, Internet of Things device. And when I saw it, I definitely had some philosophical problems with it, and had some confusion with just who are they talking to in the ad and that kind of thing. Just to kind of throw it out there is, in doing that analysis, I thought, am I overreacting? Is there something wrong here or not? I think that some of my friends that have watched that ad also had some problems with it as well. So one is, who is the audience? Who are they talking to? Are they talking to the consumer or the boss or what? I think they kind of go back and forth a little bit. Also, connecting work to Facebook, is that what people really want to do? I mean, I'm sure they did market research on that, but that's interesting. And then the third one is Facebook capturing your movements and listening in your home. That's where I kind of go, I don't know. So I don't want to bag on anybody's company if you work there. No offense if you work for Facebook, this is just a bit. So let's talk about solutions to the things that Homer did wrong, and also the things that maybe Facebook did wrong, and Microsoft did wrong, those kinds of things. Homer's tasked with building a new product, and he should have decentralized himself and explored the customer problems he was trying to solve. So there's a gentleman out in California named Nils Davis who has a podcast, and he recommends asking 5 questions when you are faced with a problem like this. Who is this product for? Why do they want it? What problem does it solve for them? How are they solving this problem today? Do they have to fire a solution that's already out there? Is there a better car out there? That kind of thing. What's wrong with their current solution? And then why is your product a better solution for them? Is it a situation where you need to have something that's 10 times better? Does it just have to be 1% better? That kind of thing. There's a lot of things to just at a very high level ask yourself as you're starting to go down this path that Homer clearly didn't ask. He did not put himself into the market problem space on this. He put himself into what his personal preferences are. So definitely check out what Nils would say about that. There's this person named Roger who has a session coming up and is in this session. And Roger, I feel like I'm plagiarizing you a bit. So I'm just going to read it off and you tell me if I'm wrong on any of this. But I thought to myself to stop validating and start falsifying philosophy. Once Homer had a bit of understanding on the problems the user wants to solve, it would have been a good time to come up with a solution to the problem. And let's talk about what that would mean. The validate approach. So Homer could put together a slide deck, an MVP. He sort of did actually with that car, but not a very good one, or a demo, and he could present this idea to one or more prospects. A second point, since solving an urgent and pervasive problem or pain point is usually a prerequisite for product success, he could visit with prospects and ask them if they experience the problems he envisions his product would solve. Then the last thing, Homer could ask prospects what they would pay for a solution with the features he envisions for the product. So all ways that you would do the validate approach. The falsify approach is probably even better for this. The validate would be a step up from what Homer did, but falsify is even better. Instead of asking hypothetical questions, Homer could ask the prospects what they actually do about the things he sees as problems. He could probe into their current and past experiences and note whether the supposed problems manifested themselves in those experiences. He could sit with prospects in the car and observe them firsthand with their situations and challenges. Do they need 6 cup holders? Well, maybe they do. Do they need 3 horns? Maybe they don't. So that's an example there. And then he could test his value proposition and pricing hypotheses by quantifying the costs that problems and their workarounds impose on users. That was a lot, Roger. Am I close? Did I get it right? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from Roger, so that's good. Last up, there's another person that would have another suggestion of something Homer could do differently. And this is maybe not something that's covered by Nils or Roger in those particular quotes, but I'm sure there'd be some agreement on this. Teresa Torres, who's in Portland, Oregon, you should check out her stuff. She would tell you that you should form like a mini team, like a squad, to kind of go out and examine problems as a group, people with different skill sets. So what she would say is, well, let's just take it back a step. We've all worked with an engineer who picks everything apart. She has no shame in highlighting why something won't work or identifying the problem in our favorite idea. So you use your engineers who are good at asking disconfirming questions to help you identify your underlying assumptions. Invite them to participate in a pre-mortem of each of your ideas. Ask them, imagine we built and launched this, what went wrong? Your engineers will be great at seeing the flaws in your ideas, at knowing what they've built before, whether that's gone well or not. Homer didn't do well talking to his engineers. He just told them what to do. And then if they repeated back to him what he wanted them to say, then he would give a thumbs up. Otherwise, he would give a thumbs down. So what Teresa would say is that a group of the product manager, the design lead, and the tech lead, they lead discovery, leverage all 3 types of knowledge and expertise throughout the discovery process, and then incorporate those meanings, assumptions, and conclusions that an engineer might draw from an interview that are different from what a designer or product manager might. So now leverage those people that Homer was not leveraging, that a lot of us forget to leverage. I think there's a lot of companies out there where engineers fly under the radar. Maybe the designers have a bigger role, maybe they have a smaller role. There's a lot of that, but empower those around you, make a little crew available to do that discovery work. That's Teresa's idea. We're getting down towards the end of time. So what are some other ways that Homer could have made his product successful? Go ahead and put those into Slack. This is what we've covered. And in a second, we will open up the floor to comments, questions. I'll take my first look at the Slack channel. But this is what we've covered today, a few different things, called out Roger. And then I want to call out as well before we go to questions. These sponsors are awesome. Check them out. They're what makes this event possible. That's why you guys have a product camp and I don't in Salt Lake City, is for sponsors like this. So really appreciate your time today. I'm going to stop sharing, and Karen or others, any questions that came up in Slack that we want to touch on? I think we're in the yellow channel, right?
Yes, the yellow channel.
I'll open it up. Does anybody want to come off of mute and talk about a point that was brought up in chat?
I'll go. You'd asked at the very end, what could Homer have done to have been more successful? I think one of the first but toughest lessons I learned was how costly it can be to overcomplicate something. So that's where I would say like it needed to be so much simpler.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's why it got to 82,000 too. Like it was just not simple enough.
Right.
Yeah. Did anybody have any thoughts on Facebook portal? Any things that came to mind? I'm seeing a few notes in the chat there. Would you all use Facebook portal for work?
No way, Jose.
And why?
To me, it's a social platform, not a work productivity platform. And I'm also just wary in general of how much data they have and what they do with it. Yeah, I don't want that in my work life.
If Mark Steffen is still on the call, can you unmute yourself and join in? Mark wrote that he actually bought a portal for his grandmother.
How did that go, Mark? I see your note. So let me read it off since I think Mark might have left the session. But he says, I've bought a portal for my grandmother. She can't use it. So in that use case, it was wrong too. And her internet is bad. So I don't know who portal is for. So, you know, I think that's a good point. You know, I think if you just talk to 10 of your friends, you know, about portal and what the problems that are being solved of work and that sort of thing, and you took Facebook out of the equation, maybe it might be different. But because it's built on top of this platform there, I think if you ask 10 of your friends and you had Facebook as part of your questions, you probably hear from 4 or 5 of them that maybe that's a concern. So something to think about there. I know we're coming up on time. Anybody have anything else that they wanted to ask or mention or comment on? I see lots of comments here from Sarah, Mark, and Roger. So if anybody of you want to come off of mute, please do.
I got one. This is Mike. One of the things I find in this is that there's nothing on the Facebook device. There's not a single compelling feature that isn't already being done on a tablet and a computer. Right. There's, other than the tracking, which is kind of nice to have, it's already been invented, and it didn't understand why you would do it. Again, companies do this all the time. They try to pivot into a space they don't understand. They throw a ton of technology at a problem, and they just basically reinvented Zoom, and they did nothing above that. Right. It just is baffling to me how even it got wings, but they have too much money. I think that's what the problem is.
Did you notice, like, on that screen and all the apps, they're all like Facebook apps that they built just for this purpose? And it's like, wow, I mean, this was an enormous expense to do this. So.
Yes. And on top of it, it's like, you know, all of us are on these kinds of calls, it's nice to have everything on one machine. So as you go back and forth, like we're doing right now with Slack, we can interact and cut and paste very easily. But going back and forth between devices, you can't do that. They're literally, if it's not on on the second device, it's you can't access it. So if it's only streaming information, you're chatting somewhere different, that ability to really access and do it in a collaborative way, it doesn't really achieve the goal. Unless you work for Facebook, which is probably why they developed it, which is the Facebook app, and they just decided to productize it and see what happens. That's the only explanation that makes sense to me.
Does. We should Google that and find out if that's why that happened. So
just one comment. Yeah, one comment, Matt. I really liked how you keyed in on, was it the owner, was the only time you saw the car was during the reveal. And it's, having that launch prep is so important. I think of Elon Musk throwing a ball bearing through the window of the Tesla truck, right?
Right.
But something like that, it's like, get all the bugs out before you actually get in front of your intended audience is a huge part of a launch. And it's almost that pre-mortem, right? You can go through that pre-mortem in a go to market exercise too. So anyway,
Very,
I
very
like
good
that.
comment. Thanks, David. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think Homer has some things to learn about product management, about product, product marketing management as well. So there's definitely a lot here, and I really appreciate everybody taking some time. I think